we just went through this with the coaching staff here in Philadelphia. And one of the things was like, how do you sell Nick Sirianni to the fan base after the only Super Bowl winning coach in franchise history? That's a difficult sell.
You're listening to the JAKIB Media Sports Network in partnership with AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio. Subscribe to the JAKIB Media channel on YouTube for access to all daily sports content.
Welcome back, South Jersey, AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio, live in the Prop Swap studio. Ryan Rothstein, along with myself, Johnny Mack, and we're talking. It's Groundhog Day, as I mentioned, in Philadelphia, and it's going to continue to be Groundhog Day until the Eagles actually move off and get Carson Wentz out of town. I still think the Indianapolis Colts are the leader in the clubhouse, but the Eagles can't get the package in return they would like from Chris Ballard, and they're trying to create that second suitor, so to speak, and that's what happens when you get two people involved. You hope to play them off each other, and you hope to increase the bidding, and all of that is understandable. But I do think, as I've texted with different people and I've talked about the potential trade with them, I do think some of the talk about the Chicago Bears is a little bit overhyped, only because of the situation they're in. They definitely need a quarterback. There's no question about that. I think they would even like Carson Wentz, at least in the realm of he's certainly better than Mitchell Trubisky or Nick Foles. And there's that name. Yeah, we don't want to go down. Beetlejuice. So that makes sense. Ryan Pace is basically working for his job. I mean, he's got to win next season.
Yeah.
You could make the same case with Matt Nagy, the head coach. So those guys got to win, and that kind of creates desperation typically. But, the one thing that people at least a lot of people haven't thrown into the equation, that fan base doesn't want Carson Wentz. And that fan base is every bit as rabid as the one here. Mm-hmm. And just like Eagles fans can make things more difficult for this organization, Bears fans can make things more difficult for that organization. And they are speaking loud and clear about Carson Wentz coming to Chicago. And I don't agree with it. I think you got to be smart enough to ignore that type of stuff, but it's also not realistic. And I think Ryan Pace is hearing those whispers.
It seems like Carson Wentz is a backup plan. Like when you're applying to colleges, it's the safety net school. You have one or two safety net schools. It seems like the Chicago Bears and for the Eagles are one of their safety net options at quarterback. Does that make sense?
I might even go as far as saying the community college option.
Okay,
but not from a trade standpoint or even a value standpoint. From a point of, I just think it's easier to sell and insert names: Sam Darnold, Jimmy Garoppolo, Derek Carr, even Marcus Mariota. Now, people are going to misunderstand what I'm saying. They always do. I'm not saying those guys are better players than Carson Wentz, although I think Derek Carr is. But
better deals, potentially.
Better deals.
Yeah.
Easier sells.
Right.
And that's part of this.
Sure. And that's always overlooked. People just treat this like a video game, and you can't just click one player's name and replace it with another. It doesn't work like that. And it's easier said than done for a lot of these names and trade options that are getting thrown in the rumor mill.
Yeah, and there are, and I've talked about the sense of urgency. I wrote about this at phillyvoice.com this week, and everybody check out the piece there, and you'll see us talking about it. The JAKIB Media YouTube page, JAKIB. Everybody subscribe to that, and we've been getting tremendous traction on that. So
yeah, it's been great.
You can see us, and you can go back to us talking about this pretty much every day in real time. And at every curveball, as everything happens, you get the immediate breakdown. And that's the beauty of of looking at things on demand. But when I talk about these types of trades and the fact that you have to sell them to the fan base, we just went through this with the coaching staff here in Philadelphia. And one of the things was like, how do you sell Nick Sirianni to the fan base after the only Super Bowl winning coach in franchise history? That's a difficult sell.
It is, and it also isn't, because there was plenty of people screaming for Doug's head.
Well,
that's insane.
That's true.
But that's the reality. It's always after the fact. It's like people wait in the bushes, so to speak, and as soon as Sirianni seems like he's off to a slow start or seems like he may not be the guy for the job, then it all comes out.
Well, and you make a good point, Ryan. You're right. You're right. But they have that ammunition. So when they're in the bushes, you know what's coming out. If you're Jeffrey Lurie, if things go badly, you know what's coming out. And Ryan Pace in Chicago, you know what's there. You know what's lying in wait. Chicago fans do not want another season of Mitchell Trubisky. They do not want that.
Don't blame them.
They do. No, I certainly do. Don't blame them.
No.
They do not want Nick Foles, unlike some people in Philadelphia. They want a quarterback that gives them hope to be a Super Bowl contender, because people in Chicago think the Bears are a Super Bowl contender with a good quarterback. And to tell you the truth, they might be because of that defense.
Yeah, that defense was the only reason they were relevant.
So, a lot of it comes down to the unknown, Sam Darnold. You can still say he's a young player. You can blame it all on Adam Gase. He's cheap. If it doesn't work, you can move on pretty quickly. Versus Carson Wentz, which is, an enormous contract. Which, by the way, that's a bigger problem for the Eagles than it is for a team acquiring Carson Wentz, because if Carson Wentz turns into a top 15 quarterback, which is mediocre.
Yep.
That's the going rate for quarterbacks in this league from a salary standpoint.
Yeah, it's about the dead money on the Eagles' end.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's not as big for the Bears, but the selling aspect is bigger than people think. And that's my point in the fact that, look, this is a public-facing industry. The fan base is part of it. You have to sell these moves to the fan base. And they are not excited about Carson Wentz. And that hurts the Eagles.
It hurts the Eagles, and it hurts Howie's leverage, which we talked about earlier in the show. And I just go back to the point, Deshaun Watson's name is getting thrown around, especially with the New York Jets, and you bring up Sam Darnold. So, it just seems like the Eagles are a lot of teams' second options, which I brought up already. But, I don't know what that means for Howie. When does he have to pull the trigger? When does he have to step away from the negotiation table, so to speak?
Well, it is, playing chicken. I heard on another show people bring up Sam Bradford, and the Eagles getting such a great return. Turned out to be the 14th pick in the draft for Sam Bradford, and ultimately that turned into Derek Barnett, who's a good player, but. There's no doubt it was great value for Sam Bradford, a player the Eagles didn't even want. But, come on. This is like, we talked yesterday on your show about people comparing the Texans releasing J.J. Watt to not releasing Deshaun Watson. You're just showing your uneducation on the aspect of contracts in the NFL if you're making that comparison. If you're making a comparison between this Carson Wentz trade and that Sam Bradford trade, you're just showing your ignorance to what goes on in the NFL. Teddy Bridgewater had a catastrophic injury 11 days before the start of the regular season. 11 days, Ryan. Mm-hmm. And Minnesota thought they were a contender on top of that. So you have a team that thinks they're ready to win. There's no other options. The draft is gone. Free agency's done. There's no quarterbacks on the street. There's no way to get better. Sean Hill's your backup quarterback. Sean who? Correct. Sean Hill's your backup quarterback. That's why there was desperation. So, if you want to wait till 11 days before the start of the regular season, carry Carson Wentz, pay him an extra $10 million in roster bonus, guarantee $22 million of his 2022 salary. If you want to do that, and hope somebody suffers a catastrophic injury a week and a half before the start of the regular season, yeah, maybe you get 2 first-round picks. You want to do that?
No, even then, I don't think they get 2 first-round picks.
They get 1.
Yeah, maybe 1. Yeah. But at that point, if you're the team that suffers that loss injury-wise, you're going to go down a different avenue most likely anyway. You're going to go call Marcus Mariota if he ends up, available and like who knows. My point is,
and that's Ryan. Where I should also the part that they thought they were a contender was part of it as well. In other words, if you were a bad team, you would just say, "Oh, all right,
screw it."
Yeah.
It's a loss.
It's
Pressure's
a loss.
Off.
We're 3-13. We'll get a top 5 pick in the next year.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not even talking about 32 teams. You're talking about probably 10 to 12 teams who think they're legitimate contenders, and then you're crossing your finger hoping for an injury. I mean, that's bad business.
It's bad business, and the bottom line is this: most teams are not going to look at Carson Wentz as a savior right now. There's too much unknown. If anything, he's a project. He needs a fresh start, and maybe he can be better than last year just with a new environment. But even then, he's not going to be anywhere close to 2017.
No.
So what are you really getting, even if you're in a unique circumstance that you just bring up?
Yeah, so, and that's why there is a sense of urgency, because we are on the part of the calendar where there are so many quarterbacks available. And people say, well, technically, Sam Darnold's not available right now. That's true. Mm-hmm. But he might become available. And if he does, it hurts your leverage. Technically, Jimmy Garoppolo's not available. But if he becomes available, it hurts your leverage. Same thing with Derek Carr. Now, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, that just really devastates if those guys were to become available. And that's why you have a very short window to take advantage of being the guy on the trade market. And after the break, Ryan, we're going to talk about the draft as well. You're getting into draft evaluation. It was Trevor Lawrence Pro Day yesterday. So now people are going to start looking at the young rookie quarterbacks. There's more options, and that's the problem right now for the Philadelphia Eagles. We will continue to talk about that here on AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio. Yes, Carson Wentz, Groundhog Day.
Oh, man.
Are you looking for a place to track your action, purchase picks, and share your sports betting analysis with the gambling community? Check out Book It Sports, a social media platform with an unparalleled experience catered for the sports betting community. On the Book It Sports app, you can track all your NFL, NBA, and college basketball picks while getting real-time updates and injury reports all in one convenient place. Start building your following today and stand out amongst your friends by downloading the Book It Sports app on the Apple and Google Play stores. Let's cash some tickets and put it on Book It.
You're listening to the JAKIB Media Sports Network in partnership with AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio. Subscribe to the JAKIB Media channel on YouTube for access to all daily sports content.
Welcome back. AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio coming down the home stretch on extending the play, the Carson Wentz Groundhog edition of the off-season. Hopefully, we won't have another one of these next week, Ryan. I don't want you. I got to prop you up for these each and every week to get you.
You need to do wellness checks on me, man, for this Carson Wentz story.
But I did want to shift to Trevor Lawrence's pro day because I thought, first of all, I think it's awesome that one guy gets a pro day. It wasn't Clemson's pro day. Clemson's pro day is on March 11th, I think, or March 12th, somewhere in that range. He's having shoulder surgery in the off season on his non-throwing shoulder. So it's not really that important. But he couldn't have worked out at Clemson's pro day. So basically, I mean, this is one guy, Urban Meyer. He of the great decision-making. We were talking off-air about his strength and conditioning coach. What a nut job Urban Meyer is. But he basically told, not told, but he really spawned this pro day and said, look, just go throw early. We'll come watch you. Mm-hmm. He's not getting past the Jaguars and number one, no matter what anybody talks. But it's interesting because you saw the Eagles were there doing their due diligence, and they're at number 6. And you have to start talking about quarterbacks with this team. You have to start talking about quarterbacks. And I'm not talking about Jalen Hurts.
You're talking about quarterbacks at the number 6 spot?
I am. Or take whatever haul you do get from Carson Wentz to go up to get one of these quarterbacks. Because guess what? Trevor Lawrence is going 1. I think most people assume Zach Wilson is going 2.
Yeah.
And that would be to the New York Jets, which would create the Sam Darnold potential trade that we've discussed as potentially being available. And then you have Justin Fields, who I don't think is going to get to 6. Now, somebody's going to, if somebody between 3 and 5 doesn't want him, somebody's going to trade up to get him. And my point for the Eagles, and we mentioned this a little bit on your show last night, is the fact that I go back to 2016 and Howard Roseman and how he spoke about being in that position. And he basically said, I don't plan on being here. So you got to make it count. Now, he's here, obviously, too quickly.
Right.
But you have to make it count if you're that high up in the draft when it comes to the quarterback position. Are you really going to sit here and tell me, Ryan, and I'm not yelling at you, but are you going to tell me, you're going to play the fan base here, you're confident in Jalen Hurts being a star quarterback in this league, a second-round pick after 4 games where he completed, 54% of his passes?
No, you're not. But if you're Jeffrey Lurie, you just got crushed for drafting Jalen Hurts last year, and that was at the 53 overall spot. And you look at the team needs, and it's pick a card, any card. So do you want to get another quarterback at 6 after the whole offseason being where is Wentz going to go, Jalen Hurts time? Then you use that pick in a spot that you don't plan on being in very often for another quarterback when you have all these other needs. The 6th overall spot to me, John, is a really tough position to be in. Because 1 or 2 or 3, it's like, okay, I mean, we're taking the best available. You're taking the second best quarterback. You're taking, that's an easy spot to be in. 6, it's still very elite. You still have a lot of options, but you have to choose wisely.
You do. I still think you're in a good spot when you're that high because I do think, whether the Eagles, I don't think Jamar Chase is going to be there, but if he is, you're not going to miss. Devontae Smith, you can talk about his lack of size. I'm a little concerned there, but that is a playmaker.
Yeah.
I don't think you can miss. The offensive tackle, his name escapes him, Sewell. He's not going to miss. Mm-hmm. I don't think the Eagles need an offensive tackle. And then, Kyle Pitts even, who's people call him a tight end. He's more of a weapon. Mm-hmm. You would have to use him in that type of situation. He can't block anybody. So you would use him as sort of a glorified flex receiver. But he could be really dominant in that phrase. So you're in a good spot, and you should. It should be hard to make a mistake. But I think if you're looking forward 4 to 5 years in Justin Fields, and I used him because Trey Lance would be difficult politically because he's from North Dakota State, but you never scout the helmet. That's what they say. It's not his fault that Carson Wentz went there.
Yeah.
But I do look at Fields as the one guy and say, if he turns into a star 4 or 5 years down the line, you're going to be kicking yourself. You are going to be kicking yourself. So this is about evaluation, right? And that scares Eagles fans.
Yes.
They say, Howie Roseman can't pick. But, guys, Andy Weidel exists. Ian Cunningham exists. The Eagles do have a well-regarded personnel staff. Jeremiah Washburn. All of these guys exist. So, look, you got to evaluate correctly. But if you think a quarterback is worthy of being the 6th pick in the draft, or even if you got to go up and you're capable of going up and you think a quarterback is going to be a superstar, I can't rest my team's future on Jalen Hurts over that.
No, and you would think the evaluation process should impact your potential trade deal with Carson Wentz.
Sure.
Right?
And by the way, it could work the other way. You could evaluate these guys. The problem is you have to trade Carson Wentz before you get into the draft process and draft evaluation. But that would make it in a lot of ways easier. If you say, you know what, Fields isn't worthy of this pick. Lance isn't worthy of this pick. then that would make things easier for the Eagles. But man, if you think they are worthy, it gets real interesting. And I think the Eagles would be derelict in their duty if they didn't take a quarterback. And I go right back to Howie's words. You have to take advantage when you're up that high in the draft. That's where we are, Ryan.
Well, let's see how they take advantage of the lovely situation they're currently in, right?
I wouldn't call it lovely.
No,
I do hope it's done. And by the
Me too.
next time, by next week, I think we're going to be talking about Carson Wentz in a different uniform, but hopefully we'll get there. Until then, everybody stay safe with the ice coming in here in South Jersey. And listen to Ryan each and every week, Monday through Friday on The Fix. I'm there every night at 7:30. A Rich Q, Tuesdays and Wednesdays on Back Your Play. Next Saturday, more Extending the Play here on AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio.
You've been listening to Extending the Play with John McMullen on AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio. Today's program.
You're hearing AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio. Listen online at 1490sportsbettingradio.com.